Well, all we're gonna do is listen to it here, and it ain't gonna start right away. I don't think.
Okay, everyone, we are live on YouTube. UGTV will be starting in just a moment. And Terry, I have returned host to you.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Thank you.
Again, we put this on speaker. I don't know what that is. I tried to hit something button. I thought maybe I need to. I don't want to get rid of microphone. So did you mute?
I would ask that everyone would check to make sure that their
It asked
microphones are
unmute.
muted. I believe we are ready to roll.
Just a moment, Mayor, please.
Okay.
Can you guys hear me? I think my screen's frozen.
We can hear you.
Mayor, we're ready now.
Thank you. Before I call the meeting to order, I want to announce that due to COVID-19, some commissioners, staff, and public are attending remotely via Zoom, phone, or in person. All participants joining by phone, please mute your phones when not speaking to avoid background noise. During the meeting, please make sure that you announce yourself by name and title every time you speak so that the public observing knows who is speaking. This is critical given the number of remote participants and is current guidance from the Kansas Attorney General. Due to COVID-19 requirements, the public is participating by Zoom and also may submit comments by email prior to the meeting. Those comments are included in the record of the meeting. We'll now call the meeting to order. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Roll call. Philbrook.
Here.
Vining.
Here.
Burrows.
Here.
Townsend.
Here.
McKiernan.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Kane.
Here.
Markley.
Here.
Walters.
Here.
Alvey.
Here. Thank you. Our invocation is being given by Commissioner Harold Johnson of Faith Deliverance Church of God in Christ.
Let us pray. Good and gracious God, we thank you for bringing us together here once again as the governing body of the unified government of Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas. We pray, Lord, that you would orchestrate our path tonight. Lead us into all paths of truth and righteousness for your name's sake. Help us, God, to embody the kind of leadership that you would have us to embody. We pray this in your matchless name. Thank God. Amen.
Thank you, Commissioner. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Clerk, revisions to tonight's agenda.
Mayor, there was one addition. A blue sheet was distributed for the administrator's agenda. Item number 2-21771 for the memorandum of understanding with the Services Employees International Union Local Number 1. That was the only item on tonight's blue sheet.
Thank you. That takes us to the mayor's agenda. There is a proclamation. This is in regards to the National Day of Service. Whereas service to others is a hallmark of the American character and central to how we meet our challenges. And whereas the nation's elected leaders are increasingly turning to national service and volunteerism as a cost-effective strategy to meet their needs. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps seniors participants address the most pressing challenges facing our communities. They educate students for 21st century jobs, fight the opioid epidemic, respond to natural disasters, and support veterans and military families. And whereas national service expands economic opportunity by creating more sustainable, resilient communities and providing education, career skills, and leadership abilities for those who serve. And whereas AmeriCorps and AmeriCorps seniors participate in more than 45,000 locations across the country, bolstering the civic, neighborhood, and faith-based organizations that are so vital to our economic and social well-being. And whereas national service participants increase the impact of the organizations they serve, both through their direct service and by managing millions of additional volunteers. And whereas national service represents a unique public-private partnership that invests in community solutions and leverages non-federal resources to strengthen community impact and increase the return on taxpayer dollars. And whereas national service participants demonstrate commitment, dedication, and patriotism by making an intensive commitment to service, a commitment that remains with them in their future endeavors. And whereas AmeriCorps shares a priority with local leaders nationwide to engage citizens, improve lives, and strengthen communities, and is joining with the National League of Cities, the National Association of Counties, and local leaders across the country for National Service Recognition Day on April 6, 2021. Now, therefore, we, the three mayors of the cities of Wyandotte County, Kansas, Jeff Harrington, Mayor of Bonner Springs, John McTaggart, Mayor of Edwardsville, and I, David Alvey, Mayor of the Unified Government, do hereby proclaim April 6, 2021 as National Service Recognition Day and encourage residents to recognize the positive impact of national service in our community, to thank those who serve, and to find ways to give back to their communities. Thank you. All right, that takes us to planning and zoning portion, 2 parts. The first is the consent agenda. I'd ask the clerk to read the statement required by state law governing the planning and zoning portion of our meeting, followed by the items on the planning and zoning consent agenda.
Good evening. We would like to welcome all present to this meeting of the Unified Government Commission. Members of the commission are Mayor David Alvey, Commissioner Melissa Bynum, at-large District 1, Commissioner Tom Burrows, at-large District 2, Commissioner Gail Townsend, District 1, Commissioner Brian McKiernan, District 2, Commissioner Christian Ramirez, District 3, Commissioner Harold Johnson, Jr., District 4, Commissioner Mike Kane, District 5, Commissioner Angelo Markley, District 6, Commissioner Jim Walters, District 7, and Commissioner Jane Philbrook, District 8. As each petition is called this evening, all persons for or against will be given the opportunity to express their views. If this is the first time that a particular petition has been before this commission, the commission has 3 options. 1, it can approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission with 6 votes. 2, it can override the Planning Commission's recommendation, but it would take 8 votes to override. 3, it can return the matter to the Planning Commission for further consideration together with a statement specifying the reasons for the referral back to the Planning Commission. The consent agenda is the first part of the planning and zoning agenda. Items on the consent agenda have received a unanimous vote of recommendation by the Planning Commission. Unless there is a request to set aside an item from the consent agenda by the applicant, a member of the public, the Unified Government Commission, or staff, then the Planning Commission's recommendation on all 3 items on the consent agenda will be adopted by the Unified Government Commission at one time. I will read the list of agenda items on the consent agenda, and when I have completed the list, the mayor will ask if there are any requests to set aside items from the consent agenda. This is your time to raise your hand and request that an item be set aside if you do not agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation. If you contacted the UG Clerk's office, that item will be set aside by the UG Clerk on your behalf. If an item is set aside, the matter will be discussed and voted upon separately. All items not set aside will be approved with the Planning Commission's recommendation.
Brett?
Most of the petitions before the commission tonight will be determined by a simple majority vote. However, if protesting property owners
Hey, Brett.
40% of the land area within 200 feet.
Brett, you're getting a lot of feedback all at once.
Let me sign on and off real quick. Thank you, Doug. All right, let me start on that paragraph again. Most of the positions
No,
for the petition,
you still have it, Brett.
it's still,
Yes.
it's, yeah, I don't know where the feedback's coming from. Okay. Most of the petitions before the commission tonight may be determined by a simple majority vote. Wow.
Go ahead, just read it. You can just read it.
However, if protesting property owners representing 20% of the land area within 200 feet of the area in question have signed and filed a protest petition, at least 9 votes by the commission will be required to approve the change of zone petition. A valid protest petition was filed regarding change of zone application, item number 1, COZ 2021-003. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this
Mr.
evening,
Bach?
and we recognize the importance of each petition.
Yes, sir.
Remind
Yeah,
you
we
that there
need
are a
to
number
fix
of
this.
items on the
This is not
agenda,
going to work
and we
going
appreciate
forward.
your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone who is joining us by Zoom or by phone to mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background.
Brett, we need to get, yeah, there you go. Mayor, if we'll pause for a moment while our clerk gets everything figured out for his audio.
This is Commissioner Bynum. I've heard from
opponents of consent agenda item SP 2021-006. I've heard from opponents of non-consent agenda item A1, change of zone 2021-003.
Commissioner, we'll probably wait until we can go through this again. I don't think all those instructions were heard by everyone.
Okay, you can let me know if I have to repeat that.
Yes, thank you.
And Mayor, I will tell you that from down here, it is very hard for us to hear anything, even though we could hear that Mr. Deichler's microphone was feeding back. We can barely hear anybody who's not in this room.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor, do you want me to start with where the most of the petitions before the commission tonight have been determined by a simple majority vote? However, if protesting property owners representing 20% of the land area within 200 feet of the area in question have signed and filed a protest petition, at least 9 votes by the commission will be required to approve the change of zone petition. A valid protest petition was filed regarding change of zone application, item 1, COZ 2021-003. We appreciate the attendance of those people here this evening, and we recognize the importance of each petition. We would remind you that there are a number of items on the agenda, and we would appreciate your efforts to make your remarks as concise as possible. We ask that anyone who is joining us by Zoom or by phone to mute your phone when not speaking to avoid background noise so you will not disturb the meeting. Once the petitioners make their presentation, anyone for or against will be allowed the maximum 3 minutes to state your views. This is your time to raise your hand. When your name is called, please state your name and city for the record. The mayor and commission are required to disclose contacts with proponents or opponents on any item on the planning and zoning agenda. I will ask if any member of the commission wish to disclose any contact with proponents or opponents on any item on the agenda.
Mayor, it's Melissa Bynum.
Thank you.
I've had contact with opponents of consent agenda item SP 2021-006. I've had contact with opponents of non-consent item A1, change of zone 2021-003.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Opponents of SB 2021-006. Multiple opponents.
Thank you.
Commissioner
Townsend.
Philbrook. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Philbrook. I have gotten opponents for SP 2021-006 in the consent agenda, and the non-consent agenda is COZ 2021-003. Thanks.
Commissioner Townsend.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. I have had contact by written communication, which I read concerning SP 2021-006, opponents only. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burrows.
Mayor, I too have had written opponents, written communication with SP 2021-006.
So I think, Commissioner, if you could, we might need you to get a little bit closer to the microphone. You're coming through a little bit. I think we heard 006, correct?
Correct. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Can the folks in the conference room hear now?
Again. Commissioner McKinnon.
Thank you. Ms. Cobbins, you have your hand up.
Commissioner McKiernan has his hand raised.
Mr. Mayor, she was just getting your attention for
thank you.
me. I've had contact with opponents of SB 2021-006. and we are still having some audio problems here in this room.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Hopefully you all can hear me. I concur with my colleagues. I've had written communication in opposition to SP 2021-006.
Thank you. Commissioner Walters?
Yes, I've had communication from opponents of SP 2021-006 and communication from a proponent of COZ 2021-003.
Thank you. Okay. I think is there anyone else? All right, seeing none, we'll move forward. Mr. Deichler.
I thank you. I will now read the items on the consent agenda. Planning and zoning consent agenda, change of zone applications. Item number 1, COZ 2021-001, James B. Evans. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District for a single family home at 1825 North 94th Street. Recommended for approval. Item number 2, COZ 2021-002, James B. Evans. Change of zone from AG Agricultural District to R1 Single Family District for a single family home at 1841 North 94th Street. Recommended for approval. Special use permit applications. Item number 1, SP 2021-005, Cynthia Slavy. Home occupational special use permit for a doggy daycare at 7714 Roland Avenue. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 2, SP 2021-006, Amanda and Noah Taylor. Special use permit to store drilling and excavation equipment in vacant horse barn or stable barn at 3648 North 115th Street. Recommended for denial. Item number 3, SP 2021-007, Ryan Barrows with Joe's Kansas City Barbecue. Renewal of a special use permit for the temporary use of land for an employee parking lot for Taco Republic at 4620 Mission Road. Recommended for denial. Item number 4, SP 2021-009, James P. Donovan with the Showroom Floor LLC. Renewal of special use permit for an Airbnb at 1127 Southwest Boulevard. Recommended for approval for 2 years. Item number 5, SP 2021-010, Kelly D. Fountain. Renewal of special use permit for a kennel at 3440 North 131st Street. Recommended for approval for 10 years. Those are the items on the consent agenda.
Yes, and I failed to mention that I had received notices of opposition on SP 2021-006. Thank you. Does any member of the commission, the county administrator, or public wish to set aside any item on the planning and zoning consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the planning and zoning consent agenda will be voted on by one vote to follow the recommendation of the planning commission.
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval for all items.
Mr. Mayor, I have something I would like to pull off Commissioner Ramirez.
Okay, thank you.
I would like to set aside
Just click over here somewhere.
SP 2021-007.
Here, we'll just meet me here.
We have someone who is not muted their microphone. So you want to pull SP 2021-007. Is that correct, Commissioner Ramirez?
Yes, correct, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Move for approval for all remaining items. Commissioner Mike Kane.
McKiernan, second.
All right. Did we have anyone from the public asking to pull an item?
We did not.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Aye.
Townsend. McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters,
Aye.
Commissioner Townsend.
Aye.
That vote is 10-0. The motion carries.
Thank you. That takes us to set aside item SP 2021-007. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Can everybody on the 5th floor hear me, or do you need me to speak up?
We can hear you.
I think I see some thumbs up. Okay, so thank you. This is for an SUP. It's technically a temporary use of land for a surface parking lot. It's located in the Rosedale neighborhood across from Oklahoma Joe's on Mission Road. It technically serves as, or had been serving, I should say, as the off-street, off-site parking for Taco Republic. They had a lease with Joe's Kansas City, which owns this parcel right here. Taco Republic is right at the corner of 47th and Mission right here. You can see some pictures of the site right now. Essentially, this is in conversations with Taco Republic. They have since ended their lease agreement with Joe's Kansas City for this property. They had been leasing 11 parking spaces. They have 11 parking spaces required as a part of their parking, required parking for Taco Republic that they were receiving this off-site. They have since found another location to serve their off-street needs, and they're going to come back in at a later date and confirm that parking agreement with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission and the staff agree with their recommendation for denial. The applicant has not met the conditions of approval in their original approval in 2017, in their first renewal in 2019, nor in preparation for this renewal this year in 2021. We had asked for multiple improvements as it relates to the site to meet the commercial design guidelines. There was some screening, there was some fencing, there was some upgrades to the asphalt, some striping, things of that nature. They've had the plans to do this work for quite some time. It has not been done. Staff recommends or agrees with the Planning Commission's recommendation for denial. There was one letter of opposition we had received. It was the in-between property owner of the car wash between Taco Republic and this location. We had received no letters of support. There are some old NOVs that have been since resolved, but other than that, we do have our reasons for denial. We would ask, as we did the Planning Commission, if the commissioners do move forward with recommending approval of this SUP, we do have some conditions of approval we would like to include in your motion. And with that, I can take any questions.
Go ahead. Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you. Is the applicant present?
Yes.
Yes, he is present.
All right. Would you like to present your application? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Ryan Barrows. I live at 1515 Hodges Lane in Raymore, Missouri. So to touch briefly, we applied for extension of the special use permit solely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. We've had 2 SUPs for a total of 4 years on this property. The first 2-year period, there were a few different ideas floating around between the staff of the Unified Government of Wyandotte County and Joe's to determine the best course forward with the idea of condemning a neighborhood business was brought up to create parking. After fleshing that out, we ultimately decided that we should renew the SUP and develop the parking lot for Taco Republic. The second SUP was granted in March of 2019. At the same time, the business at Taco Republic was sold to the current owner. Once the sale was final, we met and laid out a plan for completing a parking lot in accordance with the timeline laid out with the newly issued SUP. In February of 2020, I began correspondence with the ownership at Taco Republic about constructing the parking lot and subsequent costs. Obviously, we all know what happened in March of 2020, when COVID-19 pandemic forced all non-essential businesses to close and issued stay-at-home orders. It was the most uncertain time of our lives, especially at Joe's and most restaurants, but also the general public. Once the stay-at-home order was lifted and dining rooms were able to reopen, albeit with many restrictions, we started to plot our way through the rest of the year, but at a tremendous cost or tremendous loss of sales and profit. Taco Republic was closed for the first couple of months of the pandemic and was unable to pay any rent until August 11th of 2021, or 2020, which was abated by Joe's at half. Knowing the clock was ticking on the expiring SUP, I contacted Mr. Hand with the Director of Planning and Urban Design on September 29th of 2020 to discuss the situation of the SUP expiring and how we might be able to get some help as revenues had been slashed and there was not money available to complete the project at this time. I had a Zoom call with Mr. Hand on October 7th to discuss. During the meeting, he said that the commission might be able to work with us and we should go ahead and submit for renewal of the SUP. In January, I submitted the SUP application in hopes of an extension due to the pandemic. At the Board of Zoning Appeals and City Planning Commission Zoom meeting on March 15th, I stated why we felt we should be granted lenience towards the renewal of the SUP. When it came time for staff comments, it was recommended to deny our application on the basis the parking lot should have been completed sooner, even mentioning that 6 months after the first SUP was issued. It was also referenced at the same meeting that Taco Republic would not have an appropriate amount of parking spaces to operate to code. That was touched on briefly, then discounted, and it was mentioned that they used to rent spots in Westwood. The spots they used to rent were in Roland Park and no longer exist. The idea that Taco Republic would have to find other parking was more or less a spoken solution, and a motion was made to deny the application, and it passed unanimously. Obviously, I disagree with this decision, but we've been in contact with the planning staff or in the process of applying for permit to construct the lot as early as next week, as I began working with our architect and civil engineers the day after the planning meeting. I would still like the council to grant us a 1-year extension on this SUP so we can make the best use of our money spent on this project and not rush into rash decisions that could ultimately cost substantially more in construction costs. It also protects Taco Republic's ability to operate within the parameters of their business license in terms of available parking. Lastly, by not granting any extension of this SUP, the unified government of Wyandotte County is placing an unnecessary financial burden on both businesses, while also enforcing an occupancy limit as well as social distancing standards that limit the number of patrons to be served as a result of the pandemic, ultimately reducing our ability to pay for the construction of the parking lot. We're going to build a lot. We're just asking for a little grace as we come out of the pandemic.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone, I'll open the public hearing. The clerk, have you received any notification from the public who wish to express comments in favor of this item?
We did not, Mayor.
All right. Is there anyone from the public who would like to speak in favor of this item?
There is not.
All right, if so, please raise your hand to be acknowledged. All right. I seeing none, I'll ask the clerk if we received any notification from the public who wish to express comments in opposition.
None were received.
Is there anyone from the public present who would like to speak in opposition? Please raise your hand to be acknowledged. There is none?
None.
Okay, there are no further comments or questions from the public. I will close the public hearing.
Mayor, we did have two commissioners earlier, Commissioner Ramirez and Commissioner Bynum raised their hands. It looked like they had questions.
Right, so we will close the public hearing and now move. Does the petitioner like to make any closing comments?
The only thing I would say is that when Mr. Hand and I met via Zoom, we did discuss the idea of painting a crosswalk across the car washes, the neighboring business, that would be a nice touch for us to try to appease that action. The opposition that came from the neighboring business when this SUP was heard was from that business owner. There was a singular incident in which a semi truck parked at this lot, and the business owner then drove his vehicle over to Joe's Kansas City, blocking our entire operation, while, for all intents and purposes, losing his mind about where this person's vehicle was and who the person was. We were able to track the customer down. The customer went back over to the truck. The business owner of the car wash pulled his vehicle in front of the semi truck, and basically they had to call the police because he would not move. The police came, helped guide the semi truck out of the car or out of the parking lot. But basically at that point in time, it became very clear and apparent to me that there was going to be no way that we would find an amicable resolution with this business owner to do what Mr. Hand had recommended. I did send an email to Mr. Hand in November about that very topic saying, hey, this happened. I don't know that this is going to be feasible. At that point, he said, we'll figure it out during the planning and zoning process. So I left it alone after that point. As far as everything else goes, as I said, the wheels were in motion for all of this to get done. I have email correspondence with Taco Republic that shows we were going to address this. I've got all dated plans with architects, engineers, all that stuff. If the world doesn't shut down, this lot's already done.
All right, thank you, sir. All right,
Yep.
now close the public hearing, and Commissioner Ramirez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Meyer. This is my district. I know Taco Republic very well. I know that parking lot. I've parked in that parking lot before. Gunner, what in the previous applications were the same conditions of approval the same as today, the parking lot requirements and the parking?
Generally, yes.
Okay. We as the Board of County Commissioners and the Planning and Zoning Commission, we have our job and duty is to make sure that we follow the code, especially our development code. But I believe in this instance, blinking on the last name, Mr. Barrows, I believe he has taken the effort to maintain contact with staff. And, COVID happened. That stopped a lot of plans for everybody, for a lot of businesses. It hurt a lot of businesses. And I'm not wanting to ensure that we continue to hurt that business. And I know I see here, Gunner, in your recommendations, the conditions, you said if it was being approved, could we, because I know here in the application it says approved, the special use permit shall be valid for 2 years from the publication of the associated ordinance. Just so that we ensure Mr. Barrows, I'm not saying he won't, but to ensure that the work is done, could we extend it for a year and him come back to us and show us what he has done so that we can continue that, give him another chance? I'm wanting to give him a chance because he has shown that he has reached out to our staff the part of last year. He's getting the work done. That's my thinking, because I'm going to be completely honest and frank. When I was coming into this, I was going to agree with the Planning Commission's recommendation, but hearing Mr. Barrows speak and giving him a timeline of communications between himself, with our staff, our planning staff, and outside organizations and companies to get this work done, it changed my point of view of wanting him to give him a chance. I'm not sure. I'd be interested to know if any of my fellow colleagues feel the same or if they have any other input.
Mr. Hand, thank you, Mr. Hand, what recommendations would, if this were to be approved, or stipulations would you add to it?
Well, let me say this in response to, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban, in response to Commissioner Ramirez. I think at the end of the day, both Planning Commission and staff just want the improvements made. Right?
Okay.
I don't think we're necessarily against the use or anything of that nature. We got 2 approvals where nothing has happened, and sure, there's been circumstances, and I think at the end of the day, like I said, we just want to make those. We want to see those improvements. So our recommendation would be to give them 6. If you want to give them a year, that's fine. But we were thinking we would give them 6 months to construct it. If you wanted to give them 2 years to operate the parking lot with the condition that all the improvements are made within the first 6 months of that 2 years, I think, or whatever time period you want, that would be fine. We're limited by the code for temporary uses of land to just 2 years. I don't think that staff nor as recommended by the Planning Commission would want him to have that full 2 years to make those improvements. Generally, when we ask for improvements, we expect them done within or at least begin within the first 6 months. And then we would want to add the sidewalk as mentioned. I know that there is some issues between the property owners, but at the end of the day, that is our public right of way, not that property owner's property where that sidewalk would go.
So, this is my thought to your question, Commissioner Ramirez. Look, you look at that area and there's just not enough parking, period. And to not allow Joe's KC to have additional parking close by, really goes against, I think, what we're trying to do is when we have a spot in the city that is heating up, and that area obviously is a hot little area, we need to accommodate it. So I'm of the mind, I would like to see that we would, if 6 months is enough time to get it built, that's great. You never know. We could get a lot of rainy weather. We could get other problems that could come up that would prevent that 6 month timeline from being completed. But I'd be willing to, even after 6 months, if we had, weather events that would prevent that, to extend it. So I would like to see this move forward. Commissioner Kane?
I agree with you, Mayor, and Christian Ramirez, Commissioner, as well. That's a hot little spot. And we have the COVID has thrown the world a curve. And if that's a motion, I'd second the motion because we need to help as many of these companies move along and get back to normal.
Mr. Ramirez, Commissioner Ramirez, sorry. I did not, until the screen turned on, the conditions of approval that are currently on the screen. And I would 100% support that, those conditions of approval. I do want to see the improvements as well. Like I said, we have a job to follow our code, and I want to make sure that the business is following that code, and that also we make the necessary improvements to that area that are set by the code. So I would be completely agree with the conditions of approval that are currently on the screen. I apologize, I did not see those before.
Mayor, Commissioner McKiernan and Commissioner Bynum both have their hands up as well.
Yeah, I gotta let you know, if you're in the conference room, if you have your mic on, we're getting feedback. So Commissioner Ramirez was speaking, we were getting feedback. So if you're not speaking, make sure your mic is off. I see Commissioner, I believe that Ms. Cobbins, was there someone else who wanted to speak?
Commissioner McKiernan and Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Bynum.
Thank you, Mayor. I really want to support this small business owner, particularly with parking. And I also agree with the conditions that Mr. Hand has put forward, but I want to make sure of a couple of things. First of all, what I would like clarification on is when and if we provide approval with conditions, what then is our hammer? What is our remedy as a local government when and if those conditions are not complied with? Because while I really want to be supportive, I'm growing quite weary of granting or denying certain applications and having the applicant just do whatever they want anyway. And we have no recourse, it seems. And so I'd like to know if we grant what I think is being suggested as a 6 month special use permit, if the improvements that are being committed to tonight don't happen, I suppose in 6 months, that special use permit is over. But what if everybody still keeps parking there anyway? I mean, I really want some guidance, but I am willing to support what's proposed by way of a very short special use permit timeline.
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. Commissioner Bynum, as written, what we're recommending is that we move forward. If the commission wants to move forward with approval, go ahead and do it for the full 2 years, but the condition is they have 6 months to complete the work. So from start to finish, they would have had, now granted, Mr. Barrows outlined all the issues they've had, but they will have had 5.5 years to build a parking.
And I guess my follow-up question is, after 6 months, they're sitting on a 2-year special use permit, and 7 months later, no improvements have occurred. What then is our authority?
For SUPs, if you do not meet your conditions of approval, we have the right to revoke that SUP. So we can revoke the SUP, and at that moment, they will not be allowed to use that parking lot. And so we could always, and from there, we would have to, if that wasn't enough, we could go move forward with a notice of violation and start administrative citations for operating without an SUP.
Commissioner
Thank you.
McKiernan?
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Hand, you may be able to answer these questions for me, and if not, Mr. Barrows can. Just to verify, this parking lot will be for Taco Republic, correct? To replace the spots they're going to lose on the south side of County Line Road?
As of
They've
right
already
now,
lost those spots.
as of right now, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. As of right now, there's an agreement between Taco Republic and Joe's KC for 11 of the current 16 spots at the parking lot. Taco Republic has been in communication with us that said and have said that they are not going to renew that agreement with Mr. Barrows. I don't know if that's true or not, although the owner, that's what the owner told me. In fact, that they said that they are entering an agreement with a different property owner in Westwood, catty corner from Taco Republic, to get their required parking. Now, they'll have to go through their own entitlements to confirm that. But until that happens, the agreement is still in play. So the motion as written is still valid.
So I guess my follow-up question would be, if the parking spaces are not going to be used for Taco Republic, for whom would they be used?
Joe's Kansas
I
City.
can answer that if you would like me to.
Yes, please.
So I will be honest with you, the news of Taco Republic finding other parking spots is news to me, which is completely fine. We've always known that could be, if they can secure parking to operate to their full parking requirements, to operate with their proper business license, that's between Taco Republic and Unified Government of Wyandotte County. Fact of the matter is we own that parking lot. We own the building that Taco Republic is in. So no matter what happens, it's in our vested interest for Taco Republic to be fully operational. I can also tell you that Joe's Kansas City, as a verified and prominent business, will always have use for parking. So no matter what, we're going to put parking over there. I promise you that I can fill 16 spots over there with employee parking before the sun comes up almost every day of the week. So I'm not concerned about what we're going to do with that parking lot, whether Taco Republic uses it or we do.
Thank you, Mr. Barrows.
Frees up more parking for my guests.
Thank you. How long have you owned that property?
We owned 500 County Line Road before the 4620 parking lot. I would say probably 6-7 years on the building, and probably 5 years. We didn't own that spot for much longer than we've constructed it for parking. So I would say 5 max is my guess.
And the first special use permit to use it as a parking lot was granted in 2017, is that correct?
Correct.
I'll just point out that 2017 is a long time before 2020. And COVID really shouldn't enter this equation when it comes to having plenty of time to make the necessary improvements to comply with the SUP.
Correct, but with the first SUP didn't outline those same requirements that the second one did. As far as constructing the lot, it basically just said it was going to be used for 2 years. And as I kind of alluded to the first time, we have had discussions with prior staff at Unified Government about the idea of possibly condemning the business between those buildings for a green space parking area, and then construct a tax revenue generating business on the 4620 lot currently. That was the better part of probably a year to a year and a half discussion based on legalities with TIFs and those CIDs and those types of things to really vet that out, to understand that the investment for what we would be taking on was going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of about a $1.8 million payback. And for a parking lot, we weren't quite sure that that was going to be the best decision for us. So the first 2 years of that process was the majority spent with that decision. Then coupled with the change in ownership when the SUP, the second SUP was granted, kind of slowed some things down. So and trust me, I'm not sitting here saying that we couldn't have got it done. I completely understand that. But when we bid this project out, most recently it was at a cost of about $150,000, and we collect, just in full transparency, about $3,700 a month for that parking space, for that parking area. So doing quick math, it's going to take a long time for any sort of getting our return on investment.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. The staff report also notes that there was a history of multiple code violations on this property over the past several years. And I'm just curious, were those code violations remedied in a timely manner once they were brought to your attention?
I believe when that was brought up, Mr. Hand, I think most of those happened prior to us owning that property. I can recall one instance of code violation in which our lawn mowing company had gone out of business. I didn't notice it. We got the notice in the mail, and I believe it was rectified probably the next day.
So you would say that if this special use permit request is granted, that you will be a good steward of that property going forward?
Absolutely. And I can also tell you, I mean, in full disclosure, my architect has been in contact with staff yesterday at 3:45. We were inquiring about whether we needed to submit for a pre-application meeting or if we just needed to submit for final. And he's in the process of submitting for final. We don't want to mess around with this anymore. This is as much a pain this is equal amounts of pain for all of us. So it's time to make it go away. And so we're going to get it done.
Thank you, Mr. Barrows. Mr. Mayor, that's all the questions I have.
Mayor, Commissioner Townsend has her hand up.
Yes, Commissioner Townsend. Commissioner Townsend?
This is Commissioner Townsend. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you. Some of the questions and concerns that I have already been raised by Commissioner Bynum and Commissioner McKiernan. For clarity, is the proposal now for 2 years or 1 year? If this was going to be approved, is the proposal now, if there is a motion, for 1 year or 2 year? And I'll just go ahead and say, I had some concerns about compliance way before the COVID situation. So if this is to go forward, and I would want to support business, but we have to have compliance, I'm thinking that 1 year to let this thing go forward and have the sidewalk constructed and the other things that were requested would be enough time for compliance. As you said, there could be weather, there could be anything else. We're still really not totally out of the COVID situation. But I think 1 year max until the situation is actually solidified would be reasonable, because compliance is the main thing. And I do have concerns for something that's gone on this long without compliance, so.
Commissioner Townsend, I don't know that we've had an actual motion, so if that's the motion, but further discussion, whether Commissioner Ramirez would like to bring a different motion.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I've had my say and I will leave it at that, but I wanted to share what my view was. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. I would, sorry, trying to think. I would be amenable to the 1 year special use permit, but with the conditions of approval that are laid out on the screen by our staff, including the 6 months to construct all the improvements, and the ADA accessible sidewalk. Because again, I want to reiterate to Mr. Barrows, this is not, I want to make sure you know that the motion I am about to make is not to hinder you or to hinder your business, but is to make sure your business is in compliant with our code, because the code is what makes our community work and make our community beautiful. And so I want to make sure that you know that this is not to hinder you in any way, shape, or form. We want to work with you, and we want to work with the business as well. So my motion is to approve it for 1 year with the conditions of approval set out by staff.
Bynum, second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Is the motion sufficiently clear, Mr. Hand?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that works for us.
Thank you very much. All right. Any other discussion from commission? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
Aye.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. Next, we go to our planning and zoning non-consent agenda. Item number 1 is change of zone application 2021-003, Carol Blackwell, requesting a change of zone from R1 Single Family District to AG Agricultural District for agricultural purposes at 3505 North 83rd Street. The Planning Commission recommended approval by a 7-to-1 vote. And for the record, a valid protest petition has been received. I'd ask staff to make some opening remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. As you just mentioned, the case is to rezone from R1 to AG. The property is located, it's almost in the Piper Delaware master plan, but just outside of it, it's technically within the citywide master plan in the northern Midtown area, very close to Wyandotte County Lake. In fact, that access road to the east is just up the street from it. You're looking at it right here. The project is currently under development. Ms. Blackwell does have a permit to begin construction of her single family home. She has applied for a permit for the construction of the 3,600 square foot accessory structure, but the building inspection department is waiting to grant that permit until the resolution of this case. I would note that in January, Ms. Blackwell was heard for a BOZA case to allow an accessory structure over the required, maximum 1,000 square feet. She was denied that case in January. We have applied multiple conditions of approval to this case, including that it would not be for commercial use. We've received multiple letters, as well as at the presence in the Planning Commission's neighbors speak in opposition to this case. Their primary concern is they're worried that the barn will be used for commercial purposes. As it is about a 19-acre property, whether it remains R1 or is rezoned to AG, because of the size of the lot, it does not need to conform to the materials of the single-family home. So it could be, a large pole barn as she is proposing currently. There are no NOVs on this property. We've received no letters of support. I've mentioned opposition. There has been one case that some of the grading and other earthwork that has been done as it relates to the single-family home did cause some issues on 83rd Street. There was some tracking of mud and dirt. The Planning Commission added conditions of approval in their motion to include standard condition we apply in a lot of for cases of this size or properties of this size for land disturbance, a driveway permit, as well as to develop an erosion control plan and implement that plan so no further tracking of mud and debris occurs on 83rd Street. As you mentioned, there was a protest petition. So the recommendation from Planning Commission was for approval. That protest petition, as Mr. Deichler said earlier, would require 9 votes to move forward, 8 votes to overturn the decision of the Planning Commission, or potentially 6 votes to return it back to the Planning Commission if the Board of Commissioners sees fit. But with that, staff does agree with Planning Commission and recommends approval.
Thank you. Gunnar, would you again recount the vote required in the 3 different scenarios?
Sure. And I will say real quick that the protest petition, the threshold is 20% of property owners. There was a threshold of 80% of property owners signed the protest petition. There are large parcels adjacent to Ms. Blackwell's property, so it was only about 12 people, but that was 80%. So it's to move forward one way or another, 9 votes to approve, 8 votes for denial, 6 votes to return it back to the Planning Commission.
Thank you. All right. I'd ask the applicant to please present her application. Please state your name and address for the record. Mrs. Blackwell, are you present?
Yep, she's on the line. She just needs to unmute herself.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Carol Blackwell. I live in Overland Park, and this is the 19 acres that I've purchased in Kansas City, Kansas. It is heavily treed, very hilly. In fact, we've had a very difficult time trying to find space enough for housing and for a large barn garage. We're working on it daily. I addressed everything that the city has asked me to look at. I have had people out to see what we could do to stop the water from growing across the street. We've got that under control now, but it took considerable effort. We first took up 12 bales of hay to try and fix the situation to get it to stay on our property. But we're kind of in a valley right there, and the water can't flow anywhere else. But anyway, we brought in then another 20 bales of hay, a second trip. And then we also called the excavator and had him re-slope the driveway to a different slant. And he put a dike across the driveway, and now we haven't had any more water pouring across the street. So I have addressed everything that has been asked of me to address. I have the property disturbance filled out, ready to go in. They're asking me for something else too. I can't remember what it was. A notice of intent, and I don't understand that when I'm getting clarification on it. We planted $250 of clover, white clover for bees, and we're putting in some beehives. We're very excited about that. We like to help the farmers. I was raised as a farm girl. I've put in so far $250,000 into this 19 acres. I've paid cash for it, and I am sincerely committed to it. I've driven through several different neighborhoods around through Wyandotte County out where I am, and it appears to be a precedent that it is acceptable to have R1 and AG side by side. Now, the biggest complaint that I have had and objection from the neighbors is that they are convinced I'm putting a business in the barn. I have written 4 different letters to the neighbors to say, I am not putting a business in the barn. I have told the city that. I'm 75. I am retired. I have no desire to go into business. I've worked really hard all my life, and I've saved for this workshop that I want to put. I've saved for quite a long time to build a nice big a building so that I can have my workshop and have space to put the equipment to manage this property, the snow blade. There's over 1,000 feet of driveway on this property, and I've got to be able to manage it. I've had some theft issues up there, and I'm gonna have to put this tractor and so forth inside under lock and key at night. So I need this size of barn, and if I can pay for it and keep it in good condition, I don't see why I should be denied that. I visited a man just 2 weeks ago. He had 12 barns on his property, and 2 of them were 10,000 square feet. I was raised on a rice farm in Arkansas. My parents owned the farm. 3,000 square foot barn was a very average, medium-sized barn. I don't see it as a big issue. I am not putting a business in the barn now or ever. So I'd be glad to answer any questions, but that is a moot point that I have covered and recovered.
Thank you, Mrs. Blackwell. I'd ask that I want to open the public hearing. As the clerk, we received any notification from the public who wish to express their comments in favor of this item?
We did not.
Is there anyone present from the public who would like to speak in favor of this item?
I see one hand raised. Oops. Okay.
Do we have somebody in
No,
favor?
no, I don't see no hands raised.
Yes,
Okay.
we have Lori who had her hand raised.
Yes. Please, ma'am, state your name and address for the record. Do you want to speak in favor of this item?
Yes, I'm Lori Swartwood, and I live at 7922 Cernage Road. I disagree. I don't see any improvement. I oppose. Has Miss Blackwell carried through with fixing what she needs to fix as far as code violations?
Yeah, so ma'am, we're asking for those who want to speak in favor of this application. But in the meantime, I think what I heard from Mrs. Blackwell is she had addressed the problems with the drainage and with the mud on the street. So, is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Is there anybody who'd like to speak in favor?
We're not showing any hands.
Okay, thank you. All right. Did we receive any communications?
We did not.
All right, thank you. All right. Now, Mrs. Swartwood, if you would like to express your opposition to this, please do so. State your name and address again.
Lori Swartwood, 7922 Cernage Road. I don't see any improvement, and it's going to take more than hay to stop the mudslide. I mean, it looks a mess. And has she complied with all code violations?
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Hand, can you address those concerns? And Ms. Blackwell, can you address those concerns?
Yes, I can. I'm not sure what code violations we're talking about. Mr. Hand, can you tell me what code violations there are that I've been serviced or not addressed?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. There are no open notice of violations on the property. We had been working with Ms. Blackwell about cleaning up the street. I believe a UG crew went out there and swept the street at least once. I do not know if there's still mud after this most recent rain, though.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hand. I was there today. We were there 2 days ago and again today, and we are not, and what we have done has worked. It is definitely not flooding across the street anymore. It hasn't done it since we sent the excavator out. I had to wait 2 weeks for the excavator to go because he has a very busy schedule trying to dig basements and so forth. But he was the one that cut in the construction entrance there. And so I asked him to go back out and correct the work, and he did that. Now, that entrance will be a paved surface and it will have erosion control, but right now it's just a construction entrance. I can't put concrete on it right now because there will be lumber trucks and concrete trucks and everything going up it. So it can't be done, can't be hard surfaced until the construction is finished. And then we will put in whatever culverts or drainage pipes or whatever to keep the water draining on my property. But there's 19 acres there, so there's plenty of place to take care of that, and we have it under control.
Thank you. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in opposition to this?
Yes, there is, Mayor.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Tina?
We have Tina Rocky who wishes to speak.
Thank you. Tina, please state your name and address for the record.
This is Shane Rocky. We're both here.
Oh, thank you.
Shane and Tina Rocky. We live at 8200 McGurk. We're not adjacent to Miss Blackwell, but we're very close. And even if we take Miss Blackwell at her word that she's not planning on opening any kind of business at that location, our concern is that the building that she is building, the plans for the building called for offices. At the planning and zoning meetings, he indicated he was thinking about having picnic tables on the property. And even if we take her at her word that she's just going to be a farmer out there, our concern is that she's 75 years old. I don't know how long she's going to be willing to do that, and she's going to sell it to someone and something that would be perfect for a business to open up. So I don't know way to include in her change of zone that some kind of neighborhood.
I'm sorry. I think we're going to restart that, Shane. We're having some audio problems. Are you right up against your microphone?
No, we're quite a ways away. I can back up more though.
No, we need you right next to your microphone. It's not coming across to us.
Okay, hold on. Let's see if we can. This is about as close as I can get right here.
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay. Start all over?
Yes, please.
Our big concern is that we've seen the plans for the building that she's building, and even if we take her at her word that she's not planning on opening a business there, what she is proposing to build is perfect for opening a business. She's 75 years old. How long is she going to be there wanting to do that? And when it comes time for her to sell it, it's custom made for someone who wants to open a business there. So I don't know if there's a way, if you're going to grant the change of zone, to include something in there that would prohibit something like that from happening. That's our concern. And I don't really have a problem with what she's proposing in her letters that she sent to us and all that. That all sounds fine. My concern is what happens after that. And that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else present who would like to speak in opposition?
Mayor Jeff Gardner is wanting to speak.
Thank you. Mr. Gardner, please state your name and address for the record.
Jeffrey Gardner at 3640 North 83rd Street.
Yes, sir. You have 3 minutes, sir. Mr. Gardner, we've lost you. Mr. Gardner, are you still present? We are in techno hell.
Yes.
Yep.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, we can.
I'm sorry, my internet was just going in and out about 3 times. This is Jeff Gardner. I live at 3640 North 83rd Street.
You went mute again.
Yes, I'm still here. I just have it set up to where I push space so I don't, just trying to not get feedback.
Okay, we're ready to go. Go ahead and give us your, there you go.
Okay. First on the paperwork I submitted against the, every neighbor that is adjoined to her signed the petition against it. The only people that did not sign the petition were the actual, like, Landmark National Bank. Every homeowner that is connected to her did sign the petition against her going to ag. And the reasoning before is she did try to get the request for variance for a 3,600 square foot building. She wants to change, that was denied. The plan she submitted had an office, had several offices, I think 3 offices, 2 offices, a conference room. It was actually a 2-story building. The bottom level had 1.5 baths. Total, it wasn't really a 3,600 square foot building. It was actually closer to a 6,000 square foot building because it was 2 levels. And for what she had, the footprint was 50 by 72. So she was denied the variance. Now she puts in for ag, which for something that was obviously a commercial building. And she just wants to switch to ag. And her only reason for doing that is to turn around and build the building that she was already denied being able to build.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else present who would like to speak in opposition?
There are no hands raised, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I will now close the public hearing. Any members of the commission have any questions or comments?
This is Commissioner Philbrook. Okay, so I was listening very closely to Mr. Hand, and he listed a couple of things that I had wondered about, but I just want to go over it again. That yes, in fact, that during the BOZA, the appeal for the 3,600 foot building, that was voted down, and part of it was because of the plan supplied to that commission looked and felt like a business building of some type. So I really have questions about why somebody would come forward and supply the same plan to us again to try to go ag and using the same plan for that building. So that's a big question of mine. The other thing is that around that area, even though it's ag, it's not ag, there's maybe a few ags, some not, some are. Really, that 3,600 foot building doesn't fit into the hobby farm setting that appears around that. Most everybody else looks like a hobby farm. And I hope nobody takes this for offense, but I grew up on a hobby farm, so I understand that basically means that you get to have your horses, you get to do the stuff you want to do, but you don't have a business that you operate out of there, nor does it look like you're going to have a business. The other concern that I had is that was already mentioned, and that was the drainage onto the street that that the UG had to clean up because of the mud. And I understand with construction that those things happen. But when you have a construction site, whoever's doing the construction is responsible for those issues and have to contain that problem. So those are three main issues. And one of those, you know, when we talk about character of the neighborhood, and that's when I mentioned the hobby farm. And so the character with a 3,600 square foot building doesn't really fit into the hobby farm feel. The other thing is that with the environmental harm, that kind of property is definitely not to grow big crops on and that sort of thing. And so I know that that's really not going to get used for crops. But I also want to make sure that there is something in play, whether she receives the ag part of this or not, that she comes with an erosion control plan for that property, because you have to really pay attention to how you use that property. Does any of the other commissioners want to chime in?
Commissioner Bynum, I have a question for Mr. Hand. If the applicant is denied the change of zone today, she can still build a structure with her home, is that correct?
If she was denied, sorry, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. If the Board of Commissioners denies the case tonight, she can still build a 1,000 square foot accessory structure.
Okay. And that's always been true.
Correct.
And the original request back in January was for a variance, is that correct?
Correct. The Boza case in January that was denied by the Board of Zoning Appeals was for an accessory structure over the 1,000 square foot limit.
Okay. And so after this evening, if the change of zone to ag is denied, is there another opportunity for a variance request, or have we exhausted everything at that point and we're just back to residentially zoned property, a house, and then up to 1,000 square foot additional structure?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. If I'm understanding your question accurately, you are correct. She'd be limited to what the zone allows. She would have to wait a year to apply for another BOZA if she wanted.
Okay, so in 1 year's time, she could come back and request a variance
Yeah, next January.
in January. Okay. Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to ask for, this is Commissioner Philbrook, and I'm going to ask for clarification on how to move forward, make sure I do everything the way I'm supposed to do it. So if my intention is to deny the 3,600 foot building, then on this particular item, do we vote to move the item forward? Do we vote for a vote on this? And if you don't get enough yays, then it's denied. Is that, no, talk to me. Tell me how to do this.
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. If a motion doesn't pass, whether it's pro or con, we have to get another motion to come to action.
So that means I can just skip to the second motion and move for denial?
If you want to.
Misty
All right.
Brown, would you advise on this to be sure?
Yes, Mayor, this is Misty Brown, Chief Counsel for the Unified Government. Commissioner Philbrook has asked if, basically, she asked two questions. One was if there was a motion, if she could just move to deny, which would take 8 votes, I think. And then the other question was, I believe she asked if there was a motion for approval, which did not get the 9 votes, if additional action would need to be had. And Mr. Hand correctly answered that yes, we would need another vote to take some definitive action on this matter.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, there was one question one of the members of the public asked. Would it be okay if I answered that quickly before a motion?
Well, no, we closed the public hearing.
Okay.
Mayor Alvey, Commissioner Ramirez has a question.
I've got several. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. If it got denied by BOZA or whatever you want to call it, and somebody's trying to build a building with 3,000 feet with a couple of offices and a bathroom and everything else, there's a long range plan. And that plan doesn't fit the community. If there's already something there that says they can build a 1,000 square foot building, then let them build that. But I don't know why anyone would need a 3,000 square foot building with a bathroom and a conference room and everything else. I know why the neighbors are upset. They're like, okay, so 5 years from now, you give this to your kids and your kids build a business there. And then you go back to the erosion part. That needs to be fixed now, not wait till they build it. There's an issue that has to be addressed now, not, well, let me build the building and flood the streets for the next several years. And oh, by the way, some of that mud will go down to the lake, so I don't think this fits the community.
Commissioner Townsend.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail Townsend, District 1. I know the public hearing is closed, but listening to the presentation of the applicant, I did have a question or two for the applicant directly. One, does she intend for this to be her primary home? And two, with again concern that Commissioner Kane and Philbrook and others have mentioned, and those neighbors who are currently in protest to it, the applicant has denied that she intends to use this commercially, but she said she was putting a workshop or had a workshop. So what does that mean? What is she doing that's a workshop in the accessory building?
Sure. Mrs. Blackwell, we'd like to address that.
Carol, if you can unmute yourself, you can speak.
If need be, Mr. Mayor, I can answer that question.
Well, I think they would like to hear from Mrs. Blackwell.
I think she's available now. Go ahead, Ms. Blackwell. We can barely hear you. Ms. Blackwell, if you can unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I want a woodworking shop. Presently, I have a 2-car garage and I have to move my saw out to the driveway and then I have to move it back in. It's heavy, have to move it back in every night. I want a woodworking shop so that I can continue to work on my projects. I don't sell them. I've not sold a single one except when I sold my house, the lady liked the swing that I had built on the deck and wanted it to stay. That's the only thing that's been sold that I've made. I've made a coffee table. I've made several things. There's several other things that I would like to build. We have beautiful wood on that property, some of it walnut, and I have saved it and I want to use it in the house. I've contacted a man to cut it and to plane it and to make it available so that we can cover a ceiling with the wood that's from the property. I want to work on that. This is going to be my personal residence. I will live there. Now, I realize that when this all started to begin with, all the neighbors were complaining to me that there was a Phillips construction company that had said he was going to have a barn built for personal use and then turned it into a construction company with large tractors and trailers and so forth. And I felt like at that time that the sins of that man were being put on my doorstep. I am not going to be building any kind of business in this barn. I just want space to store the tractor, the lawnmower, the snow blower, all that stuff that's got to go to keep this property in good condition. I've already stopped the flow of water across the street, and I will continue to have that stopped. I don't want to mess up my neighborhood. I have a beautiful home here in Overland Park, and I want this to be a beautiful residence also. I have owned commercial real estate for years. I've recently sold everything. The only thing I have left is this 19 acres and a piece of land in Grandview. I've sold all of the office buildings, the doctor's offices, the school, the apartment buildings. I've sold everything. I wanted that office so that I could maintain my records for tax purposes or for whatever needed to be done. I didn't want them in the house anymore. I wanted to take them out and put them someplace where they were not in my way. That was the reason for the office. The reason for the bathroom, the half bathroom, I'll tell you very bluntly, unless you're 75, you don't realize that you don't want to walk down the hill and back up to go to the bathroom. You want a bathroom close by. It was purely for my purposes, nobody else. There's no staff going to be in this building. I don't have any staff. I have a son, and we sometimes hire a handyman to help with different projects and so forth, painting, and that kind of thing. This is strictly legitimate. For people to be worried about what happens after I die, I think is really holding me accountable for something I can't control. The next person that buys this is going to be under the same codes that I'm under. If they want to start a building, they're going to come to you for a permit to ask if they want to start a business. I'm sorry. If they want to start a business in this building, they're going to have to ask and comply with city ordinances the same as everybody else. So I think that's kind of a moot point, what's going to happen in the future after I pass away. Is there anybody else that wanted information from me?
So I'm going to ask any commissioners more comments. Commissioner Ramirez.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just had one question to Gunnar, and it stemmed from what Commissioner Bynum was saying about BOZA. Let's say we do deny this, and she's exhausted at this point any avenue, and a year from now she reapplies to BOZA for a variance. What would have to be different in that application for it to be approved by BOZA, in your opinion?
This is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. After the year lapse, technically she could apply for the exact same thing. I think that what I will say is when we had our pre-application meeting with Ms. Blackwell, we had advised her to move forward with a change of zone, not a variance, and she came with the variance. The issue in the variance during our review of that case, we had questions about the floor plan that had been raised today, and she had said that some of those labels on those rooms were incorrect, but she never changed the floor plan. So what moved forward was a floor plan that said an office here, an office there, so on and so forth, which raised concerns with the neighborhood. I think that there are some As we described in the Planning Commission earlier this month, but also at the Boza case earlier, I think there are obviously many different screening techniques that we could employ if seeing a 3,600 square foot building on a 20-acre parcel was an issue for the neighbors. There's certainly ways that we could adhere to that. I would also note that the R1 zone has the same height restriction as the agricultural zone. So you're not going to get anything taller when you go to AG versus maintaining at R1. I would also note that a change of zone and the conditions that follow that change of zone stick with the land. So the condition that no commercial property, no commercial business can happen without an SUP will stay with this land if moved forward.
Okay, thank you. That was the only question I had. I wanted to see, Ms. Blackwell to hear if we were to deny it, what her next steps could be. And it, again, I think it was established that she can live on the property. She still can build a home and live there with the 1,000 square foot, the 1,000 foot accessory that comes along with being able to build a single family home. That's already in the code. So I just wanted her to hear that so that she knows if it gets denied, you may have to wait, but you have another chance. And that was my only question. Thank you.
Commissioner Bynum, in the floor plan that was submitted inside the application, I think what it's laying out is specs that add to at least a 3,000 square foot footprint, if I'm not mistaken. And Mr. Hand, I'm asking you to verify along with me. It also shows a staircase, which indicates a second floor, which, if I'm not mistaken, would basically double that, potentially double that space. So first of all, I want to ask you if I'm correct in the detail of the drawing that was submitted inside our agenda. You know, there's various measurements across the top and across the right-hand side that I think must add to a 3,000 square foot footprint. And then an upstairs, which again, potentially doubles the square footage. So I guess I'm asking for clarification on that. And I would also say that regardless of if that's all correct, it's clearly something that's much, much larger than the allowed for 1,000 square foot accessory building right now. And I'd much rather see us grant such a thing through a variance than a change of zone for this property in order that this type of building be allowed. So I don't know if you're able to clarify for me what I think I'm seeing on the drawings. But my comment is that if we as a governing body are going to make some arrangement or exception for a building of that size in that neighborhood, I'd rather see us come to some resolution through a variance than a change of zone. Thank you.
Commissioner, this is Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. If you give me a second, I'm going back through the old Boza case to look at that floor plan. We didn't include it in the change of zone application. So if you give me just 1 second, I can calculate the floor area.
Thank you.
And this Commissioner Ramirez, just a quick question. Since Emboza was denied, is the variant, to reapply for variance, is it the same timeline as, is it the same 1-year timeline?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
No, it is 3,600. Those stairs that go up are only for half of the building. The other half is still the height for the different bays for the vehicle.
Okay. Gunnar, so it would be 3,600 square feet total, or 3,600 square feet plus half of that again?
Total.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor, Miss
Oh, sorry.
Miss Blackwell has her hand raised again.
Don't. Please go ahead, Ms. Blackwell, if you have a clarification. Mrs. Blackwell?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it's unfortunate that that went through that way. Those are not offices, and I've asked the architect to change them, and he is working on it. Those were supposed to be drying rooms for the lumber. Some of the lumber yards have told me it has to dry a year. Some have told me it has to dry for 2 years. And I wanted the upstairs because I thought with hot air rising that it would dry much faster upstairs. And I had him include that upstairs area in the barn so that I could put lumber up there to dry it. But I just heard about a week ago that that will cause it to crack. I cannot put wood up on the second floor because it will dry too quickly and cause it to crack. So that stairway is probably going to come out of there, or if it stays, it'll be for something else, which I don't have a purpose for at this moment. So I don't know what it would be for, but it never was planned to be an office. He labeled it because he couldn't think of anything else to put on it. So I don't have anything to do to make it an office. I don't have any business to run to need an office. So I just want one room for files, and that's it.
Thank you. Right. Any other comments or questions from the commission?
Mayor Alvey, I move to deny this proposal.
Commissioner Mike Kane, second.
And let me state why. Because number one, because of the character of the neighborhood, that it doesn't fit in with the rest of the hobby farms that are already around it. And number two, because, which would be 8 on our information stuff, is because there is an environmental concern and harm.
We have a motion and a second. It would require 8 votes to deny the Planning Commission's recommendation. Any comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
King.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
All right. The Planning Commission's recommendation was denied. That is the end of our planning and zoning agenda. We now go to the regular consent agenda. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the regular consent agenda? If an item is not set aside, all items on the regular consent agenda will be voted on by one vote.
Move to approve all items as submitted. Ramirez.
Johnson, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Aye.
Burrows. Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Barkley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. The motion carries.
Thank you. Well, we have two items under the administrator's agenda. Item number 1 is an option purchase agreement for 546 North 130th Street in Bonner Springs. I'd ask Mr. Bach to present this item.
Thank you, Mayor, Commission. Doug Bach, County Administrator. The item on your agenda this evening was first presented to the Standing Committee on March 1st. It is a land sale for a projected project that is out in that area. This is Unified Government-owned property. I will recognize Catherine Carter, our Director of Economic Development, to come forward at this time and offer a brief presentation regarding the changes that were made to that deal since it was presented to Standing Committee, where it did receive unanimous approval to move forward with the sale. However, since we did make those changes, we did want to make sure and clarify those to the Commission at the meeting. Ms. Carter?
Thank you very much. Catherine Carter, Director of Economic Development. Just a very, very brief presentation. As Doug mentioned, there were just a couple items. This did pass unanimously at the Standing Commission back on May 1st. And there were just a couple items that we changed, and that was substantial enough that wanted to bring it back in front of you all for your full kind of review. So just to orient you kind of where this property is located, it is owned by the Board of County Commissioners here on 130th Street. The plan is to do 180 units of townhomes, 2 floors, attached garage, etc. A significant amount of amenities. Because this is in Bonner Springs, we do not have any kind of jurisdiction over the planning process. So that is one of the reasons why we are looking to do this option at this time, so that basically the applicant and developer has time to work with Bonner Springs, go through that plan, knowing that they have an option on that land, as they would have to rezone, among other things. So the two primary items that we changed changed the term of the option from a 1-year term to a 1-year term from a 2-year term. This is more in line with what we've been doing with land bank options, et cetera. And then the main difference really is the increase in the purchase price. So we had originally had it at the appraised value of $145,000, but after some additional review, decided to bump that up to more of a market rate value for the purchase price of $525,000. We did say that if there are some site challenges that we anticipate, the developer is welcome to come back and kind of plead their case and explain if there are, if those extreme site work costs, would require any kind of, or they could request a price reduction, but we are under no obligation to do so. So with that, that is the couple changes to the option purchase agreement on 130th Street.
Thank you. Does any member of the commission have any questions or comments?
Commissioner Ramirez. Mr. Mayor?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Catherine, can you briefly, for my own knowledge, explain how a land option purchase agreement works, or how it operates?
Sure. So basically what we're saying is this is an agreement that we as the unified government will sell you this property if these conditions are met. So they basically have, the applicant has a year to do a number of things, and that's really primarily working with the Bonner Springs Planning Department and their council to get through rezoning, as well as kind of their preliminary plan and final plan, so that we know that we're only selling a property if a project is definitely going to move forward. So what we don't want to happen is for us to sell them the property, they don't get approved by Bonner Springs, and then it's just sitting there for a while. So we want to make sure that we're retaining that unless it is definitely moving forward. So this kind of gives them the kind of flexibility and latitude to work on those approvals for the next year, knowing that we will not sell it out from under them. So they have a guarantee that if they do meet those conditions, that we will sell for the specific price indicated.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that explanation.
Sure.
Commissioner Burrows?
Thank you, Mayor. Catherine, one, I'm pleased through the committee's discussion, we had a chance to talk about the development that was proposed there and the location it has on the western side of our community. And we did find that there was additional value in that property. I guess my question is, do we know if that is still a fair market price for that property in that location on the major corridor? I'm just curious, we went from 145 to now 500 and some. How do we know as commissioners and the public know that that is a fair market price for that property?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So we did work with our appraiser's office to discuss kind of what other comparable properties in the area had gone for in terms of a per acre price. And then also keeping in mind that there were some kind of extreme site work that would have to be done. And it's all, I will say, a bit of a not a guessing game exactly, but just there's a lot of nuance to determining an exact price. But we felt pretty confident in working with the appraiser's office that that was a fair market value.
And if I may, Mayor, Catherine, and please, I'm not trying to be argumentative. What was the value placed on that property by the appraiser beforehand? Was it the 145,000?
Correct. Yeah.
And the same appraiser has come back and appraised it now at $500,000.
Well, they have not appraised it. So the way that my understanding, I'm not an appraiser, but what was explained to me is that they have a certain price, kind of a certain per acre price that they look at land that they deem kind of has been undevelopable for a significant period of time. This property has not been developed and has been kind of available for sale for decades. So that kind of reduces the price that it gets appraised at. So that's how they came up with the 145,000. Now, looking at what some other properties in the area have been on the market for and what some have sold for, that's more kind of where the nuance comes in, and looking at kind of what is that kind of the market value versus the appraised value are frequently different. And so that's how we got to that number.
So
Commissioner Doug Bach, if I may.
Yes.
I will say too, we did a specific comparison of looking at properties that are on the market today, particularly around, we looked through the Piper areas that where we could find up close to K7, looked at the price of those properties and compared them to this. We found some in recent sales that had happened. For the most part, all of them are below the price that we have this property at today. This property, we moved it up. We believe it is more in the commercial corridor, being down there north of Feldman's in that area. So realistically, it is that we are listing it and selling it today in this option for about 10,000 more an acre over the higher ones listed there. They were more in the range of 20 to maybe 28,000 on several different properties, where we're selling this, Catherine, I believe, right at 35,000 an acre.
Correct.
And Doug, when we would dispose of a piece of property like that for development, is the property of that size put up for bid, or do we just appraise it for the proposed development that goes on there for the land that we have in the land bank? I'm just curious what our process is, because I find the discussion that we had as a committee, and as the chair of the committee, there was much discussion in reference to this issue. And we want to ensure that we are getting the fair market value for a piece of property that is on the western corridor of our community that really does complement and lead into the western development and the proposed sites and development that are out there. I would just hate to see us being undervalued on that property or not put it for bid for a development. Those are my comments as a commissioner, as chair of the committee, when some of these questions were brought up forward in the committee.
That's a good question. And it really comes to many of our properties that we have for sale. What we do is we put the property out and make it available for purchase for anyone to come in. So it's not really out there for a specific kind of development, especially one like this. We've had offers on this property in previous years. I can think back, it's been several years ago where we had a different option placed on this property. It was in the sense like this, they had to work through everything with the city of Bonner Springs. In the end, they were not able to work through what they wanted to complete on this project. They paid for their option and to extend it, but in the end, they could not close on the property because they couldn't move their deal. But it's kind of open from that perspective. We look for if somebody sees the property like they do for any other land that they may be looking to buy in our county. They approach with to request to buy that property. This is one where we didn't have it out there for sale with a land price marked on it. That's something that I would say on some of our properties that have a higher value, maybe that's something we could work to do and go at it. Yeah, as you know, we do own a lot of properties, though many of those are lots we've acquired through tax sale land bank, which actually I think is how we received this. We've just had it for a number of years, but there were probably 10 that we could probably pull out that we could probably put a land value on. And one option for us could be to contract with a realtor if we wanted to actively market those versus just post one of our signs out there and see if someone approaches us on it.
And if I may, Mayor and Commissioners, we have had this discussion as to what the true value of our property is that we own, that the city could rid itself of, and not knowing it. And Doug, you just mentioned about putting our for sale sign on the property versus trying to market them. That comes with a cost, as we well know. When I see the large variance, and I commend staff for going back and looking at the price and the value of that, because those concerns came up within the committee itself, that when I see such a large variance of $350 million or $350,000, that's quite a jump on a piece of property. And so it makes me wonder, and I have a question, are we still undervaluing the property? And if we are, I would hate to see us do that. But at the same time, I do know that if we have an opportunity to pick up, $500,000 on a piece of ground that we have, I would just wondered about the bid process with a project and or an appraisal on the property to find out its true value.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from the commission? All right, seeing that, I would entertain a motion.
Walters, move for approval.
Ramirez, second.
I think we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook,
Aye.
Bynum,
Aye.
Burrows,
No.
Townsend,
Aye.
McKiernan,
Aye.
Ramirez,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Kane,
Aye.
Markley,
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Vote is 9-1. That motion carries.
Thank you. Item number 2 is a memorandum of understanding with the Service Employees International Union, Local Number 1. Mr. Bach.
Thank you, Mayor. Doug Bott, County Administrator. This item comes to you before with an agreement memorandum of understanding with the union, as you noted, SEIU. It is for the years 20 and 21. The terms are in accordance with the directions given forward with the governing body that we've discussed during executive session.
Commissioner Mike Kane, move for approval.
Harold Johnson, second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows. Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Sorry. Aye.
Thank you. I got Townsend.
Aye.
McKiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
The vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you. That concludes the portion of our regular meeting. We are adjourned. I'll call us back into order as the Land Bank Board of Trustees. Does any member of the commission or county administrator wish to set aside any item on the Land Bank consent agenda?
Move for approval. Commissioner Mike Kane.
Second, Ramirez.
Thank you. We have a motion by Commissioner Kane, a second by Commissioner Ramirez. Roll call, please.
Roll call. Philbrook.
Aye.
Bynum.
Aye.
Burrows.
Aye.
Townsend.
Aye.
Kiernan.
Aye.
Ramirez.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Kane.
Aye.
Markley.
Aye.
Walters.
Aye.
Vote is 10-0. That motion carries.
Thank you for your attendance tonight. We are adjourned.